Okay, let's unpack this. The adventurers. I mean, they have just navigated one of the most psychologically taxing periods of their entire journey.
Absolutely. They faced down the red brands. They endured that whole chaotic, time-disrupting madness of the manor.
And maybe most critically, they stared into the terrifying glowing eye of a Nothic
Right.
and received these just shattering prophecies about dragon wars, cosmic threats, a conspiracy stretching so far beyond the current map.
So you would think, logically, that they'd focus on that, the big picture, the geopolitical war that is so clearly brewing.
But they don't. They make an immediate and intensely local pivot.
Exactly. The source material shows a perfect, if surprising, example of urgent triage.
Triage, that's a great word for
They
it.
had those apocalyptic visions ringing in their heads. They know a massive white dragon named Cryovane is somewhere nearby. They know the shadowy black spider conspiracy is still active.
But the most immediate, the most personalized danger wasn't any of that.
No, it was deeply personal and spiritual.
It was Sister Gariel, the cleric back in Phandalin, the one who's been suffering so intensely.
She's being psychically targeted, harassed by a banshee.
A banshee named Agatha.
And this attack, it's persistent, it's debilitating. And it was dangerous enough that it demanded immediate action from the party.
So the entire mission overview for this deep dive is dedicated to solving this one spiritual crisis.
Yep. It takes them immediately off the main track and sends them north toward the cursed, centuries-old ruins of Conyberry.
It's an insane shift in focus. You go from a war of scales straight into a high-stakes supernatural negotiation.
And what we have in the source material for this deep dive is really a two-part analysis.
Okay.
First, you have the treacherous journey itself, which is defined by these brutal, exhausting ambushes and unwelcome tolls.
1 second.
A chilling, almost cinematic exploration of a ghost town that culminates in a diplomatic confrontation with a spectral entity.
So we really need to focus on that strategic decision first. Why? Why does this urgent spiritual problem outweigh facing down a known dragon threat or tracking the black spider?
Well, the Nothic gave them overwhelming long-term information. It was almost too much. But the threat to Sister Gariel was now.
It was immediate.
Immediate. It required a clear, defined action, and crucially, it offered a potential tactical advantage.
And we see that advantage emerge pretty quickly, don't we? When Turin, the gnome barbarian, he asks about the puzzle box they've been carrying.
That's what connects everything.
The mysterious sealed item they got way back at the beginning.
Yes. The emotional stake is Gariel's life and sanity, but the strategic stakes are tied to information. That puzzle box represents latent knowledge.
Knowledge that could be about the very conflicts the Nothic warned them about.
Exactly. So by accepting the mission to deal with Agatha, they aren't just saving an ally. They're trading a localized danger for a massive informational edge. They could potentially unlock secrets that inform their actions against, silver ships sailing between the stars.
This feels like a huge shift in their resource management. They're recognizing that knowledge is the most valuable commodity they can get right now.
Given the overwhelming complexity of the threats they face, yes, they need clarity, and Agatha, this ancient being, possesses it.
So they're moving from brute force solutions
to intelligence gathering operations, and they're using a banshee as a very unlikely intermediary.
Let's jump into that perilous journey then, because before any of that strategic maneuvering began, we get this fascinating grounding moment of humanity right there in the source material.
We do. A necessary pause before the chaos just kicked off again.
What happened?
The source notes that before they even secured the wagon for the journey, Turin and Ohio Jim exchanged vows of love.
Wow.
It's a truly remarkable beat in the story. After facing temporal confusion and just existential dread from the Red Brand hideout and the Nothic's prophecies, they prioritized this profound personal commitment.
A tender promise made to each other before stepping right back into high danger.
It grounds their adventure in something deeply human and emotional.
Is there any indication in the source of how that affected them? Did it make them more cautious?
It seems to have galvanized them, but maybe it also softened their guard just a little bit. They needed that moment of normalcy, of connection.
And immediately after that, it was back to business.
Back to logistics. Turin handled getting the vehicle, securing a sturdy wagon from the local stable mistress.
After some good-natured haggling, the source says.
Right. It was one brief return to the simple mechanics of day-to-day life before hitting the Tribor Trail.
But that normalcy, as we're about to see, was very short-lived.
Very.
That return to the simple logistics of travel was immediately undermined.
Immediately.
The journey north, even on a major artery like the Tribord Trail, was fraught with danger. It just emphasizes how completely overrun this region is.
Despite the party clearing out local bandit camps, it is not a pacified area. It's a constant war zone.
And this first encounter, it wasn't just some random scuffle.
No, this was a sophisticated, immediate, and coordinated ambush by 9 goblins.
9 of them.
If the party had any illusion that clearing out the red brands meant the roads were safe, this encounter just completely shattered it.
Let's get into the specifics of the tactics here, because it really shows a level of organization we haven't seen from the lesser monsters up to this point.
This was a classic flanking maneuver. It was designed to maximize confusion and casualties against a moving target, their wagon.
So how did they set it up?
2 goblins charged head-on. Their job was just to slow the wagon down, stop its momentum.
Anvil.
Exactly. And then, critically, 4 flanked hard left and 3 flanked right. They were trying to completely envelop the party, making it impossible to focus fire in any single direction.
And the party was caught completely off guard.
Completely. By the speed and the coordination of it, it suggests they were traveling too loosely or they weren't scouting ahead properly, maybe still reeling from the events at the manor.
That seems to be the key tactical failure here. They were mentally exhausted.
And the source notes that Lyra, who was positioned on the wagon tailgate, completely exposed. She bore the entire brunt of the initial coordinated attacks from those flanking groups. She took a nasty, swift beating.
It's such a critical lesson for them. Even after defeating a small army in the Red Brand hideout, they are still fundamentally vulnerable to a well-executed roadside ambush if they let their mental guard down.
It really underscores the continuous grinding nature of conflict in this world. You can beat the big boss, but it's the constant small threats that will bleed you dry.
They did manage to dispatch the goblins, though.
Well, swiftly. Despite being surprised, their combined strength is still significant. But they immediately had to address the toll this took.
And that's where Valindra, the party's healer, comes in.
She had to immediately spring into action, mending the severe wounds, especially Lyra's, and restoring their resolve.
But even the healer needs to rest.
And that's what the sources highlight, the profound physical and spiritual toll taken on the entire group. As the journey continued, Valindra was forced to enter a deep, focused, meditative state.
Just to recover.
Just to recover the mystical energy she'd expended, keeping everyone else alive.
So this journey is really less about covering distance and more about managing attrition.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Right.
And the next major threat, it didn't wait for them to fully recover. It was an obstruction on the path itself.
Forcing an immediate and very painful decision.
The encounter with the massive ogre, blocking the path at a river bridge, demanding a toll.
This is just highway robbery, but on a terrifying scale. A single brute whose sheer physical presence dictates the terms of passage.
And this provided such a critical character moment. It blends Ohio Jim's characteristic recklessness
and Plep's bizarre creativity.
with immediate painful consequences.
So what was the party's strategy here? Did they just try to fight it?
It was divided. Instead of a unified confrontation, which would have been a high-stakes, time-consuming combat when they were already injured and tired, they tried something else.
Social engineering and thievery.
You got it. Ohio Jim, ever the rogue, tried his characteristic move, stealthily pilfering valuables from the hulking brute.
While Plep attempted a distraction. A convoluted scheme, as I recall.
A convoluted scheme against a creature whose primary skill is smashing things.
That is peak Plep. So what were the details of this distraction? Even if it failed, we have to know what a far from convincing distraction looks like against an ogre.
The sources suggest Plep-Schlep's strategy involved an impromptu, multi-part performance. He was trying to leverage the ogre's greed and simplicity.
Okay.
He reportedly started arguing loudly with an unseen companion about a fictional pot of gold further down the river.
Trying to lure the ogre away from its toll post with the promise of greater riches.
But the performance was too intricate, the argument was too theatrical, and the ogre, focused entirely on the visible gold, not the toll money, simply wasn't having it.
The con was far from convincing.
Which signaled the immediate failure of their social approach.
And the consequence for that failure was immediate and brutal.
And aimed directly at the most vulnerable party member. The one trying to execute the simultaneous stealth maneuver.
Ohio Jim.
Precisely. The ogre was having none of the theatrics. The source material is visceral here. It says the ogre's massive club struck Ohio Jim with a sickening thud, sending him sprawling. It's a powerful image of pain and failed tactical initiative. They were reminded brutally that you can't distract an ogre with philosophy or bad acting when its singular focus is guarding a bridge.
That's a powerful moment of friction. It shows that even minor failures carry catastrophic costs. So why didn't they retaliate? I mean, shouldn't a party of this strength have been able to take down a single ogre, even injured?
They absolutely could have. But the strategic choice was to avoid further attrition.
Right. The mission. The clock is ticking.
They're under a self-imposed time constraint to reach Agatha. Fighting the ogre meant potentially taking more significant wounds, exhausting Vlindra even further, and losing precious time.
So they made the tactical retreat.
They paid the toll and immediately made camp after crossing the river.
Yeah.
That payment, it highlights their exhaustion and how they prioritize their mission objectives over pride or petty vengeance.
So if we connect the dots on this leg of the journey, the travel itself is the ultimate antagonist.
It is.
The road to Conyberry isn't just a logistical exercise. It's a constant, debilitating battle against the stream of threats plaguing the region.
Which means they arrive at their destination injured, fatigued, and mentally prepared for battle.
Only to be confronted by a deeper, more unsettling type of horror.
It sets the tone perfectly for the shift into Part 2. The confrontation with existential despair.
Conyberry is where the narrative shifts completely. It requires that immersive, high fantasy horror pacing. We move from the physical threat of goblins and ogres to the psychological dread of history being preserved. What was the immediate sensory input as they approached the village?
The unnerving silence. It was oppressive. The overgrown path led them into a ghost town where the houses were just skeletal remains.
In Turin's recollection that the village was sacked centuries ago just layers this historical dread onto the ruins.
The quiet wasn't peaceful. It was a profound absence of life. It was broken only by the crunch of their own boots on ancient rubble.
It maximizes psychological tension by taking away the sounds you'd expect.
And that silence made the visual impact of the Spectre reenactments all the more chilling.
The entire tragedy was being replayed over and over in perpetual, terrifying silence.
The silent screams, as the source calls them, were designed to be unsettling, the ghostly chaos swirling around the ruins. The lack of sound just emphasized the tragedy, making it purely visual and intensely poignant.
They weren't just seeing ghosts.
No, they were witnessing the frozen, looped moment of the village's destruction, trauma preserved in spectral form.
Let's walk through the specific scenes they witnessed as they navigated these ruins. Because this isn't just a list, it's an analysis of human reactions to sudden, overwhelming devastation.
We begin with the most primal response, panic. At House 1, they saw a spectral family frantically trying to barricade their front door.
So you see these translucent hands fumbling with locks and hinges.
In desperate, silent pleas against an unseen horror. The panic is visible, but the sound is internalized by you, the viewer, which makes the terror so much more immediate.
Then House 2 showed the internal struggle, the division under pressure.
Here, two translucent figures were caught in their final argument. They were debating silently over whether to flee or defy.
One urging escape, the other.
The other defiantly pointed toward the village center, suggesting a fatal disagreement in their final moments. And both vanished just moments later, indicating that their internal division led to a shared demise.
The scene at House 3 then moves from panic and conflict to just visceral, profound loss.
Absolutely. A faint, ghostly, soundless wailing led them to a spectral woman desperately searching through rubble. Her ethereal hands are reaching into empty spaces for a lost child.
And Pleptulep, he was moved by this.
He was. The source notes his normally irreverent demeanor just faltered. He searched fruitlessly for the child's physical remains.
And that futile search highlights the depth of the loss, the finality. Only the memory remains.
Then you shift to the last stand and the final moments of spiritual retreat.
At House 4.
At House 4, we see the death of the village's defense. A spectral militiaman manifests, standing firm against the unseen attackers. He slowly collapses, clutching his side before fading entirely. A profound, silent image of defeat.
And that's contrasted immediately with House 5.
Which shows the end of their spiritual defense. An elderly villager, composed and translucent, kneeling in prayer, he slowly dissolved with a faint, holy glow.
A moment of serene terror.
Suggesting a faithful departure and acceptance of their end.
The destruction was total. The reenactments even showed the environment itself reacting to the violence.
Yes. House 6 brought the environmental horror. As they got close, the air grew intensely cold, carrying this faint, ethereal scent of smoke.
And they saw a spectral family huddled together.
Shielding each other from an unseen fire. Their forms were obscured by these wisps of ethereal smoke. And this was closely followed by House 7, which detailed the scramble for survival.
The scavenger.
A gaunt, fearful, spectral villager rummaging through overturned furniture, stuffing invisible items into an unseen sack, constantly glancing over their shoulder as if pursued before just vanishing suddenly.
The last act of desperation and greed.
This relentless accumulation of silent, horrifying snapshots transforms the location. Conyberry isn't just ruins, it's trauma preserved, a nexus of lingering psychic energy and despair.
It establishes the perfect stage for the confrontation with the Banshee, whose very nature is tied to grief and tragedy.
And that general despair then gives way to the direct spiritual threat at the overgrown cemetery.
What specifically happened at the cemetery that focused their attention, that moved them from the generalized trauma toward their specific target?
The ground itself seemed restless. Vague, shimmering outlines writhed and coalesced from the disturbed graves.
Like swirling mists.
Exactly. Swirling mists of human-like shapes, heavy with sorrow and anger. It was an environment of profound spiritual distress.
And it was here that Lyra saw something.
Her keen perception caught a fleeting, anguished face in the mist. Its jaw was locked open in a silent scream, repeating only one name.
Agatha.
A clear, spiritual beacon pointed them toward their goal.
But before they reached Agatha's hut, they had a terrifying encounter at the village well.
This was perhaps the most dangerous non-combat moment of the session. The well itself was unnerving. It shimmered with a chilling cold.
And they saw spectral villagers trying to draw water.
Yes, desperately trying, before a darker, more aggressive entity erupted from the well. It scattered the terrified figures before receding back into the abyss.
So this entity wasn't just a lingering ghost, it was actively hostile.
And it had a specific, terrifying psychic pull on the party members. It was trying to draw them into the darkness.
An immediate psychic attack.
Lyra felt immediately compelled, called to enter the well's chilling abyss. It was a profound, almost hypnotic draw.
But more dangerously.
Ohio Jim, similarly compelled, suddenly tried to hurl himself into the darkness.
Oh, wow.
It took a collective, desperate effort from the rest of the party to physically pull him back from the brink. It highlights the immense, potentially sacrificial power of whatever deep entity was in there.
That near miss is a terrifying reminder that some threats can't be defeated with steel or spells, only with immediate, unified willpower.
They wisely decided against lowering anyone down into that unknown darkness.
Were there any final glimpses of the village's demise before they reached their goal?
Just two final poignant scenes before the path became clear. House 8 showed a group of spectral figures moving quickly and urgently toward a back exit, as if fleeing pursuit. The last desperate attempt at escape.
And House 9
showed a single figure slumped against a wall, exhausted and resigned, before slowly fading. The final note of the village's destruction wasn't screams. It was quiet, profound dissolution.
And the oppressive silence of Conyberry is finally broken only when they reach their destination, guided by something otherworldly and intentional.
Yes. The path became clearly marked. Glowing orbs appeared ahead on the main thoroughfare. Following their ethereal light, the party was led directly to Agatha's hut.
It was a deliberate act of guidance.
Agatha knew they were coming, and she was prepared.
And this brings us to part 3, the Banshee's bargain. The atmosphere around the hut itself must have been heavy, a mix of ancient magic and profound sorrow.
It was. The air was thick with ancient power. Agatha's disembodied voice invited them inside.
And upon entering,
her spectral appearance solidified. It seemed to float as if submerged in water, an unnerving visual of an entity not quite tethered to this plane.
This is an entity of immense power.
Capable of immediate chilling dominance, yet presented not as a raging horror, but as a supremely powerful, mournful negotiator.
And Imogen, the direct and often explosive member of the group, was the one to initiate the negotiation.
Which sounds like a formula for immediate disaster given the power differential.
It really does.
It was a bold and ultimately a foolhardy opening. Imogen, ever direct, immediately confronted Agatha. She accused the Banshee of dealing dishonestly with Sister Gariel.
Implying the terms of their previous communication were unfair or deceitful.
Yes, and then she demanded that Agatha cease her psychic harassment.
Demanding a Banshee do anything seems ill-advised. What was Agatha's response to this challenge of her authority?
It was a swift, overwhelming demonstration of dominance. She didn't shriek, she didn't fight, she commanded Imogen to speak no more.
And just silenced her.
Instantly, with an unseen, overwhelming magical force. This action immediately established the power dynamic. They were not here to demand things, they were here to request them on Agatha's terms, or not at all.
The entire negotiation hinged on submission to the Banshee's authority.
And once she established that authority, Agatha revealed her own history, tying this spiritual crisis to a specific physical location, the Tower of Storms.
Ah, so a connection to the coast.
A profound one. Agatha stated she was the original keeper of the Tower of Storms, a desolate lighthouse structure, often battered by storms.
But it's now occupied by a new threat.
A powerful religious fanatic named Moesco, whom she calls the heartless anchorite of Talos.
Talos, the Storm Lord, a
Oh.
chaotic evil deity of destruction.
Right.
So this isn't just a ghost versus mortal conflict. It's a direct conflict between two powerful supernatural entities. One tied to sorrow and ancient death Agatha, and one tied to elemental chaos and destruction Talos.
Exactly. It adds a whole layer of divine conflict to the mix, and the source of this profound conflict is surprisingly mundane, yet symbolically charged.
Which is what?
Moesco stole Agatha's opulent conch shell, and she desires its return. She spat Moesco's name out like venom, highlighting the deep enmity between these two keepers of the coast.
Which suggests the conch is far more than just a trophy. It's a symbol of authority over the tower, or maybe the coast itself.
That's the implication. And this immediately raises the stakes. The party's local quest to save Gariel has now become intertwined with the potentially cosmic conflict between rival spiritual powers.
So what were the specific terms of this high-stakes exchange?
They were clear. If the party retrieves the conch shell, Agatha promises two things. First, she will lift the curse and cease her psychic manipulation of Sister Gariel.
Fulfilling their primary mission, that's the emotional payment.
And second, and this is the strategic hook Turin inquired about the mysterious puzzle box they carry.
And Agatha knew about it.
She confirmed explicitly that she possessed the knowledge to unlock the box and its secrets, and she would do so upon the conch's return.
That puzzle box. It's been a lingering mystery for the entire journey. It potentially holds information that links back to the Nothic's prophecies and the grander conspiracy.
Which means, by securing this bargain, they are potentially gaining access to critical information about the overarching war. It justifies the detour completely.
It transforms the mission from a simple rescue to intelligence acquisition.
They are risking their lives against an anchorite of Talos to get knowledge, which is a strategically sound choice given the complexity of the threats they face.
Beyond the what and the why, Agatha also provided crucial logistical details. She gave them a hard deadline and a specific, almost riddling warning about the coast.
The urgency is absolute. Agatha stressed that they have only 4 days remaining.
That is a severe time constraint. It requires immediate, rapid travel back toward the coastline from Conyberry.
And the logistical warning itself is the deepest part of the bargain. She tells them they must arrive at the coast at high tide.
Right.
But she specifically cautioned them not to try to reach the lighthouse structure itself during high tide.
Let's unpack that riddle for a moment. What are the two simultaneous truths she's relaying here?
It's a classic supernatural contradiction, and it's critical for success. High tide means the water is at its highest point. If Agatha says they must arrive at high tide, it implies that this specific condition is necessary to reveal or access the path to the tower.
Like a hidden causeway is only uncovered or made passable then.
Perhaps. But if she warns them not to approach the lighthouse itself during high tide, it means the high water point makes the structure treacherous.
Maybe the waves crash over the pathway, or the structure is magically guarded by the high water.
Which would be fitting for an anchorite of Talos, the Storm Lord.
So they need to time their arrival with absolute precision. Arrive as the high tide is starting or peaking to use the path, but then wait for the tide to recede slightly before physically stepping onto the structure.
It demands detailed knowledge of nautical charts and timing. It adds an entirely new level of technical challenge to the mission. It forces precision, strategy, and respect for the elemental environment ruled by Moesco's patron god.
This shows Agatha isn't just sending them on a fool's errand. She's providing necessary intelligence for an extremely dangerous infiltration.
And the negotiation concluded with a powerful punctuation mark.
Confirming the bargain was sealed.
With a snap of her spectral fingers, Imogen's voice returned. The imposed silence was broken, the terms were accepted, and the task was sealed.
They had traded a harrowing exploration of a ghost village for a clear, incredibly dangerous 4-day deadline mission against a powerful divine agent.
Mm-hmm.
So, What does this all mean? Let's synthesize this monumental shift in strategy and focus for you.
The party has successfully navigated immense physical and spiritual challenges to survive the journey and exploration of Conyberry. They used that experience to secure a critical, high-risk, high-reward mission to the coast.
And now they carry an absolute non-negotiable 4-day deadline to traverse the distance and infiltrate the Tower of Storms.
Which is occupied by Moesco, the powerful worshipper of Talos.
The urgency is absolute. Failure doesn't just mean Gariel's continued suffering and potential death.
It means missing the opportunity to unlock the puzzle box and potentially gaining knowledge critical to understanding the dragon threat and the coming wars the Nothic warned them about.
It's a race against the clock for both life and information.
Their focus has shifted completely, geographically and thematically. They are abandoning the dusty, troubled interior roads in the aftermath of the Red Brand chaos.
To head directly toward the treacherous sea, toward a desolate, perpetually stormed structure. It's a pivot toward coastal warfare and the confrontation of rival divine powers.
Which brings us to the cliffhanger. They are now speeding toward the coast, bound by a contract with a powerful, sorrowful banshee.
Yes. They have the Conch's retrieval as their immediate goal, the puzzle doc's knowledge as their critical reward, and a ticking clock driving their every move.
The next few days will be a frantic race against distance, time, and the terrifying destructive power of Moesco, the anchorite of Talos.
And we want to end with a final provocative thought that builds on this strange transaction.
Hmm.
Think about the actors involved. The Banshee, Agatha, a terrifying symbol of despair, sorrow, and unfulfilled longing, wants her opulent conch shell back from a heartless anchorite of Talos, the god of destructive, chaotic storms.
It really begs the question, what cosmic significance does this mundane-sounding, luxurious object truly hold to connect these two antithetical forces?
Right. Why would an agent of the Storm Lord, a deity of raw chaos and destruction, bother stealing something opulent from a creature of sorrow and death?
Is the conch just a trophy of victory over the tower? Or is it perhaps a key that grants the wielders some measure of control over the elements, or the very nature of the Tower of Storms itself? Is it a key piece in a struggle for divine dominance over the entire region?
You have a mission, a destination, and only 4 days until that clock runs out. The path to knowledge requires facing down the destructive power of the sea and the storm. You must sail into the heart of the tempest.